It was never called Appalachian.
Mm-hmm.
But it was always considered more country.
Yeah.
And I was always, there were people who tried to denigrate that because, I had homemade clothes and stuff, but they were beautiful. They were beautiful. And so how do I feel? And my mom, she cooked. There's pictures of my dad where he went when he was down on a farm with them, where they would shoot rabbits, and then they would get stuff like rib and that. And my mom would cook. So my mom cooked like some of these folks do on some of these shows they have now on Facebook and stuff. That's how we cooked all the time.
Yeah.
You know how hillbillies are. I have to go home. Not so much now, but I think especially it was an issue for men. I think that's the need to be tied where you had more of a status.
Mm-hmm.
Or you understood your status. Maybe that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, those ways in which either like the family's kind of recognition in that community or your own recognition, and certainly as your father was a teacher, I expect that there were people that kind of grew up and knew him.
Yeah. Pardon me, I didn't mean to interrupt, but every once in a while, very rarely, I might run into somebody at some kind of a to-do family or something, and I'll say, I'm Troy Campbell's daughter, and they will know who that is.
And without an accent, right?
Well, it was certain things, not the accent, but certain word choices that I would use. Then I would hear oh, where are you from? You must be down south somewhere. I remember just even asking for a case quarter, and they were like, a what? we don't say that, or calling it pop instead of or soda.
Yeah.
It just differences that we have. And this may be funny, but even I don't care if I'm just meeting you. Normally, if I'm coming over, I'm taking my shoes off, and I'll just be like, I'm a country girl. That's just something I have to do. I don't just keep shoes on around the house.
We don't have one now.
Yeah, I'd say the coolest thing about my grandpa is, I guess people weren't very successful in the town that he grew up in. And I guess some old man, it almost sounds like a scene from a movie the way I've heard it, but it's like grandpa's kind of standing down by the river, and some old man comes up and he's like, well, you see this river? You're never going to go past it. You're going to grow up, live and die in this town, never make anything of yourself. So when he was 16, he enlisted in the Army, and I guess lied on his application, and fought in the Korean War. And I guess by the time he got out at 18, he was a sergeant or something like that. But by the time he was actually legally able to be in the Army, had some rank. So that was cool. And I guess when I had to Google when the Korean War went on, but I guess it ended in 53. And I think my mom was born in 59, so somewhere in between there, they moved up to this part of town, and then had my mom somewhere in between 53 and 59.
I feel like they're really good storytellers, and I think that's how the world just passes through them, through them, as through telling stories. And I couldn't love a storyteller anymore. I do think there's some, I want to say some shame that they carry a lot of times, and I feel horrible about that. I just hate that. But when they are with a person or a group, a community where they feel confident, where they feel accepted, I love how sort of unashamed they are. They're just this is me, this is authentic, this is real. I love that sort of free spirit about them.
When we moved to Madison Place and I started school there, and I was going to the public school for a while, there was a lot of people that weren't from Kentucky there, especially in the Mariemont area, because I was a bookworm. So I would always ride my bicycle to the Mariemont Library and check out books and come home. But I remember even in school, later in life more so, and I talk about this in my book, Jilted to Jesus, but especially when I started junior high at Walnut Hills High School, which is a college prep school. So I started there in the 7th grade. And I remember there were a lot of more affluent kids there, so to speak. And I never felt like I fit in. And my clothes were, my jeans were from Kmart. And, I didn't have the most fancy labels on my clothes. And they would call me hillbilly and they would make fun of me. So I had a lot of that kind of thing, even as a kid, that I dealt with. And, growing up with that for a little while was really, until I got older, of course, which I learned to embrace and love my heritage. But for a while, I was really ashamed of my heritage, of being a hillbilly, because we were so awesome.
We would go down there and stay in Papal Perry's trailer. And that's where I actually got to connect with people, was family reunions. And it's just quiet, and it just feels very different than up here. Everyone knows each other, either from, there's probably only a certain amount of high schools, but everybody's gone to high school together, or knows someone through someone, versus here. And you only get to really hear about it through stories a lot of the time that my grandparents are willing to share, or that they remember. There's a lot of things you don't really think to ask. Or you learn through different family members,
The other day, somebody, it kind of hurt my feelings. Somebody said, you're one of those people that sometimes sees the glass half empty all the time. And I'm like, not really. It's that Appalachian fatalism. I was raised that you don't get your hopes up too much, right? So I didn't know there was a term for that, but we were taught, you don't get if something good happens, be calm about it. Don't brag about it, because that's bragging.
All right.
So when your life's better than other people, you never brag, because tomorrow your life may not be.
Exactly.
So I'm going to tell you a story. My mom and dad divorced, so I went to stay with my mom for a little bit in Kentucky. I was so unhappy. I couldn't fit in. I was so unhappy. I didn't make friends easy. I stayed to myself. Finally, I said, I'm moving back.
You were a city girl, huh?
I moved back to, we still lived in the city over there.
Right.
We didn't, but it wasn't home. I got back to Lower Price Hill, and it was whew, what a relief.
Cross over the railroad track, and then you make a left, and it's just go straight down this street with these houses lined up, and it's all family. And I couldn't quite let that sink in, that they were all family. So I went down there and we were out for a walk, and I was like, man, my feet are hurting. I should have brought different shoes, because I was wearing my shoes from the funeral. And my aunt's like, hey, Mary, you got a pair of size 10 shoes that she can wear? And they brought me out shoes. And then I was like, oh, they're family. It's our family down here. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then we're walking. I'm like, man, I'm kind of thirsty. They go up to the next house. Hey, Bob, can we get a couple of waters? I'm just like, I love this.
We wasn't deep enough in the South. I am Appalachian original, born and raised, and I'm proud of it. So I don't consider.
Did you
myself,
use that word, Appalachian?
I use it all the time.
Excellent.